Hello, everyone. Everyone that I haven't greeted. Delighted that you are here. I'm Sally Alger. Welcome to the first Puget Sound Book Artists Salon experiment. I'll be moderating the program today. I want to talk about the idea for this salon. It was born several months ago when the PSBA board realized that due to COVID-19, we would not be able to have the usual members book arts exhibit. Unhappily, the planned 2020 members book arts exhibit was to be a special celebration because it marked the 10th year of our organization's existence. We had gotten together and established a theme for the exhibit and posted a prospectus. Our theme was transformation, is transformation. We did not know at the time we established the theme how very prophetic it was. And it's going to be interesting to see how that theme has been pursued and will be pursued as the year goes on. In February, we started receiving online entries. We had gotten a very few of them and then had to shut down. So one of the things that we have missed while being shut down is the stimulation of being with other artists, being in contact with them, their creativity, and their ideas. So today we're going to interview and look at the work of 4 of our member artists who had filed their 2020 entries. I'm going to post the work and then I'll ask questions of each of the 4, sort of interview them. And you all too can ask questions through the chat function on the Zoom screen. We are hoping that through the magic of the virtual world, we can recover some of that sense of contact. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Sally Alger. I'm on the exhibit team that is charged with setting up the exhibit for this year. I've been a member of Puget Sound Book Artists for 4 years now. I've, for many years, had a big interest in handcast paper making and learning book arts, but I didn't know anything about PSBA until a friend invited me to the annual meeting. Since I joined, my lifelong learning has been very enriched. I've found through this organization workshops and teachers and people with similar interests, people who are like me and just very interested in learning all I can, and people who are very successful professional book artists with books in both private and museum collections. And we're all sort of jumbled in together and learn from one another. It's a great thing, great phenomenon. I'm delighted to be in on this mini exhibition. I want to introduce you to my other members of my exhibition team. Pat Chupa she's on the Puget Sound Book Artists Board. She has been a member since the beginning, I believe, and has been invaluable in being moral support and assisting with ideas. She's one of those people that has many creative ideas when she's at a board meeting, and I'm delighted to introduce you to her if you don't already know her. And then Rachel Watson, who, let's see, where is she? Rachel, there. Rachel is relatively new to our organization, and she is our video expert, or one of them. She edited our previous Zoom event that is now on YouTube, available for you to see. And she too has been most helpful in some of the intricacies of the technology of Zoom. And so then I want to introduce you briefly to our participants, our presenters today. They are Gina Pisello, and maybe you can wave or say hello. Gina Pisello, Belinda Hill, I see her, Bonnie Julian, there she is, and Judy Cook, and I see her too. I'll start with Gina. Gina has been a book artist for a number of years. She is speaking to us from California, but I know that she has important ties to the Puget Sound area. She writes an informative blog entitled Unbound, has had books in many juried shows, both in California and in the Puget Sound. So Gina, unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about that connection between California and Puget Sound and your main interests as a book artist.
Okay. Well, my son decided to attend the University of Puget Sound 6 years ago. And when we were there for orientation, I met Jane Carlin in the library, and I had heard from a San Diego Book Arts member that you have a nice collection of artist books there. So I asked her if when I came back in September, I could see some of the books. And in the interim, she suggested that I bring some of my books, and she had some people there for me to meet in September when I brought my son to school, and everyone was really friendly and very welcoming. And I decided to join since my son was going to be attending for a few years. And it's just been a nice, cross-pollination between California and Washington. And I've gone up there a few times to visit my son and taught some workshops while I was there. I've been there a couple of times that have randomly happened to be when events for book arts were going on. I was there last March for the Bainbridge Island Museum book arts program, so I got to go to that. So it's been a good connection.
Well, welcome. What would you say are your primary interests or concerns in book arts? How did you happen to find that?
Well, I started making books almost 20 years ago, and I really started with structures. I borrowed books from the library and learned how to fold different things, and fell in love with just the huge variety of books that are out there. I don't think I realized that, there were so many different kinds. And I've always loved paper and messing around with it, doing origami, and book arts is just a natural extension of that. So I tend to make sculptural books. I tend to make, if I'm not making a sculptural book, then I'm making altered books. I love carving into old books and turning them into something that's still a book, but is also something that I've created. So I bring my love of maps and history and science and math into all of this too.
Excellent. And then I want to introduce Belinda Hill. Belinda is an arts educator who has been active in our area for a number of years. In one of her artist statements, she writes, "I visited an exhibition of artist books several years ago at UPS. It was a revelation." UPS is the University of Puget Sound. "It was a revelation that creating books was an art." So, welcome. Tell us, unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about what drew you to PSBA and your main interests as a book artist.
So I have been doing a lot of fiber and fabric art and collage multimedia. And then I got to go to the exhibit. A friend invited me, and then she ended up not being able to go, so I went by myself. And I was just enthralled with the idea of doing some of the things that I was already doing, but adding paper and doing them as books. but I didn't join. I started making books, but then I didn't join until I saw a notice that Colette Fu was going to be doing the workshop several years ago. And so I quick joined so that I could get in on that workshop, which was a fabulous workshop. That's one of the things, you know, that you have, that this group has, that quality of workshops. You have small ones, which I've been to a couple, and then people like Colette Fu and Beatrice Coran. So that's kind of how I got into this.
Very good, thank you. Belinda, I should add, is responsible for coordinating another exciting event coming up, the Puget Sound Book Artists Book Exchange. That's taking place September 12th, is that correct? Okay.
Right.
This is the second year of that very successful occasion. And that leads me to introduce Bonnie Julian. She's our third presenter today. She was the coordinator and originator of last year's Puget Sound Book Artists Book Exchange. She has been part of Puget Sound Book Artists for 8 years. I know you moved to Puget Sound from California. We have quite a California influence in our organization. And in California, you were involved with something called NORBAG there. Tell us about that, and tell us a little of your history of your interest in book arts.
Okay, well, NORBAG stands for the North Redwoods Book Arts Guild. It's centered in Humboldt County, mostly in Eureka. And I became hooked on book arts after the head librarian at the middle school where I worked arranged a display of book art from one of the members, who actually happens to be here today. If you see Dolores's picture, it was her book art that was on display in our library, and I just was enthralled with it. I loved it. And so I went to the next monthly workshop that NORBAG held and joined. And that was in 2004. And so I've been a member of Book Arts for quite a while, and was thrilled to find PSBA when we moved up here 8 years ago. So now I enjoy working with both organizations, and doubly blessed by all the book artists that I have contact with.
Very good, thank you. So our fourth artist is Judy Cook. Judy, hi, welcome. You write, PSBA has taken me from daydreaming about making altered books to actually making books. So tell us something about the story of your involvement with PSBA and your primary interests in book arts.
I got introduced to book arts when I was taking classes at Evergreen State College after I retired. And I took printmaking classes and art history classes. And then I did a huge project of a screen printed book that was 20 pages long, and I did 20 copies. And anyway, that was where my interest started. And then I was going to continue doing that and join PSBA back then, but I got distracted by a multi media printing on textiles. And so I went away to learn about that for a couple of years. And then I came back to PSBA because I wanted to combine the textile things I'd been learning and making books. And I really enjoy making paper mache. So.
Oh, I see, okay. Okay, all right, so this is our first slide. This is the work of Gina Pisello. We'll see how this, okay, very good. So tell us about this work. What is the title?
It's called Mount Baker Typing Practice.
And where does the title come from? How did the work come about? What am I?
Yeah, this is a very straightforward title. It tells you exactly what you're seeing. Sometimes they're a little more literary, but in this case, I used a typing practice book, a vintage one that I found at an estate sale, and took out some of the pages and created this cascading book with it. And then it's hard to see in this first image, but I cut an image of Mount Baker from Loomy Island when I was staying there in 2012. I had taken a picture of it that I liked. And so I cut the image into the foredge of the book. But the book existed like this for the last 8 years, and I didn't really like it because, as you can see in this picture, there's no contrast between the cut work and the background. It was impossible to see the image. And then in January, I was taking an online class with Helen Hebert called Weaving Through Winter, and I came across this blue and green paper that you see in the background, and I thought about cutting it into thin strips and weaving it behind the image. And so if you can switch to the next slide, they can see the result.
Quite different.
So that really the photo image I had transferred. It's from being a book that sat in a filing cabinet for 8 years to turn into something that finally made sense and was, to me, a complete book.
So what made you think you wanted to do this? Tell the story of the book.
Oh, okay. So this is probably the third or fourth book that I made along these same lines. I love Haiti Kyle's book artwork. She makes these amazing structures, and I saw one in a magazine one time called The Fishbone Structure, but all I had seen was a photograph of it, so I didn't know how she actually did it. And I tried to mimic it by doing just a series of folds in the foredge of paper, and then I thought it'd be fun to cut. I like doing cut work, to cut into the edges that overhang an image. And so the first couple of books that I made had rivers cut into them. The first one was called Lost River. And it just was a theme that I was working on to do this idea of folded foredges. But the original books, it was a long sheet of paper that I folded up into accordion folds and just had them, they didn't line up. There was like a 1/4 inch overlap. And with this book, I took individual pages of the book, cut them to different lengths, then folded back about 1/4 inch of each edge, and then put them all together into a book. And then I cut the image into so this was sort of a more sophisticated version of it, where I was cutting a more sophisticated image into the foredge.
So I'm curious about how the idea of the typing book and the other image came together in your mind.
I'm not sure now, since it was so long ago, but I probably just liked the look of actually I do kind of remember liking how I tried to line up a line of text at the foredge of each page, and I just liked the graphic, turning text into image. And so there was no real connection between the image of the mountain and the text from the book, other than that I liked the way that the typing looked, the typography of the text looked in this cascading sort of book shape. And then cutting the image is kind of its own thing. But I think for me, they work together because the typography becomes sort of this background texture to the page.
And that is kind of how it fits into the theme of transformation also, how you transformed a mundane practice book into an image of the interwoven with the image of the mountain.
Yes.
So the slide forms itself well for Belinda's work here. So Belinda, tell us about this. What is the title? And
So this is called Transformation, Mystic Texts to Understanding. So I had already, I was taking a course called The Seven Valleys and the Arts of Transformation. So I already had transformation. So it was kind of interesting to me then when you came out with the transformation as the theme of this. And so the idea was in the course is that we would take this, it's a mystic text, it's Seven Valleys by Baha'u'llah, and we would use the arts to help us understand the text. And the text is written in the genre of Sufi mysticism. So it's not a straightforward kind of thing. It's in metaphors and allegories and fables. And the Seven Valleys is this, the journey of man towards whatever the ultimate goal is. So that's where I started from. And other people in the class were doing music and a variety of different arts. But I decided that I would take our weekly sessions and each valley, each section, I would make a book to help me understand more about the themes in that section. So there's 7 books that are about each of the sections, and then there's a introduction and a culmination book.
so it looks like you used many different materials and forms. What all did you choose to use? I'm seeing
So if you
photograph.
want to
Go
go
ahead.
to the next one. So because the 7 valleys, it's a journey through these valleys, I used a lot of an old atlas that I have been cutting up. I love the paper in the atlas anyway, but because it's of the journey idea, I used a lot of that. And some of the atlas I just used as it was, that I cut pieces out of it, like in this particular one. This is the introduction. And then as we discussed it, not only do we have the journey, but someone was saying, oh, it's like stepping stones. So you have these different, you're moving through the text.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things I did. And then if you go to the next one,
Beautiful.
I also used the index pages from the atlas, which I thought, again, you've got all these different cities all over the world. So you've got just kind of a global feeling from it. And this particular one is about a valley that has no beginning and no end. And so I wanted a book that didn't have a beginning or end. And this was my second iteration. The first one was kind of the star book idea. But this I liked because you have the verse, and then if you look into the box of the square, you see the picture that goes with the verse. But I also did, if you want to go back to, I was learning about doing gel prints. And so some of them have, there's one kind of toward the center that has, you can see a bird, has some gel prints that I did on some of the different ones to kind of catch some of the other images. So there's images of birds, and fire is another image that's in the text, which is also there in one of them. So just every week I would take whatever the text was and try to come up with a something that I felt helped me find those images and understand it.
And did you feel that the exercise making these books did enable you to probe and understand the what sounds like an enormously complex material that you were dealing with in your class?
Yes, it really did. And I think other people who were using other arts did as well. But for me, making the artwork and particularly doing these books really helped me get into the text a lot more.
And the text sort of pushed you to find and gather materials for each different segment of the book then.
Right, and also for the different types of books, I also was trying out doing some book slip covers and a couple of different boxes because I'm trying to learn a variety of new and different techniques. I'm really bad, in fact, about going, oh, that's a neat idea. I've got to try that. So yeah, so they're all different kinds of books.
Bonnie, tell us about this book. Tell us the title and how big it is and what you used to make it.
Okay, well, the title is Bunker Graffiti, and the book has a number of photographs of the inside of these bunkers that are located about a mile from my house in the Naval Ammunition Depot Marine Park. And the bunkers were created in 1938 during, well, getting ready for World War II. And they stored munitions, boxes of munitions. And then they were waiting, held in those bunkers until they could be picked up by the ships that came into Ostrich Bay. So I'm a photography addict, sort of, and I enjoy taking photos. So I've taken a lot of photos of the bunkers and the graffiti on them and decided to put them together into a book. And the box is supposed to depict the bunker, but obviously it doesn't look quite like them. So that's what this is all about. In this picture, you can see what the bunkers look like. There's 3 rows of them, and they're hidden kind of into the hillside and covered with moss and ivy growing off of them. And they've kind of transformed from munitions storage to a palette, so to speak, for artists, graffiti artists, and the homeless hang out there quite a bit. Because the whole area is totally hidden away. There's no signs that tell you that it's there from the entrance to the park, and so you kind of have to know it's there.
That is a picture of the bunker itself, right?
Yes, this is one of the rows. There are 3 rows of these bunkers, probably about 20 to, I haven't counted them, 20 to 30 of the bunkers. And they're sort of stair-stepped up the hillside. So you can see how they run. It's a long area where they run into each other. And at one time they had doors on them to keep the munitions dry and safe, of course. But I think there's only one with a door still left on it.
I just couldn't give up showing the bunker in its, there we go. All right. So, so this is, do you know anything of what the meaning of the graffiti and so forth is? I mean, we see such strange images in these photographs.
No, I have no idea. Some of them are fanciful, and some of them are kind of dark comments, and I didn't take photographs of some of the more unpleasant parts, but I like the one with the eye. That's actually in the bunker itself. It's in the very back of a bunker, and I really enjoyed that one. But I haven't actually been up to the bunkers for probably more than a year. So I don't know if they still look like this or if they've been painted over, changed. You know, that happens with graffiti, especially graffiti in hidden places.
Transformation occurs in places like that, which is your book. Tell us the size of your book.
The book is 4¼ inches wide and 4 inches tall, and it's sewn together with, each signature is sewn together with a pamphlet stitch, and then all those signatures are woven together, and that's the green thread that you see through there. And the pamphlet stitch part, the threads are on the outside, and then that's what has been threaded with all the beads. So it's not a very large book, and obviously the box just literally holds it when it's opened like that.
It's like an archaeological site. Makes you wonder about things. So we have the work of Judy Cook. Tell us about this interesting object, Judy. What's the title, and how did it come about?
So the title is The Library Tree, and the way it came about was I was down on the Hump Tulips River with my husband. He was fishing and I was drawing, and there was this magnificent old maple tree just gnarled. And so I wanted to make an altered 3-dimensional paper mache tree. And so the inspiration for the tree came from that sketch. And then the other parts that inspired me for this book were the round door was inspired by a friend of mine who was a potter who made little potter hobbit houses. And so she passed away a year or so ago. And so in her memory, I made my tree have a hobbit door. And then it became a library as I went along. Well, first of all, the base of it's a book. The roof is a book shape. There's a porch roof there that's kind of hidden in the picture. And then I was using a book to make this structure, and then I decided it needed these little wood sprites, and then they needed to do something. So if you go to the next slide, or the third slide, well, there you can see there's the close-up of one of the wood sprites reading her book. And so you can see in this picture that like the wings on the wood sprite are made from pages of the book, and the leaves are pages of the book, little books. And then, so that's how it came about.
Very good. And it fits with the theme of transformation in that it's a book transformed. I'm interested in your process, how it came about that you went from a sketch. Did you get the idea for the book as you were sketching the tree, or did that?
I think that came out a little bit later. I knew that that's what I wanted my tree to look like. And so the way this tree is made is it's made from cardboard, and then for an armature for the center space, for the trunk of the tree. The branches are made from tinfoil, was what's inside there. And then everything's covered with paper and painted. And then the moss is wool roving. And like I said before, the leaves are, I cut out leaf shapes from pages of the book. And then the rocks, if you go around to the front of the book, the first one, you can see the little rocks that are sitting in front of there, like little stones going up to it. Those are felt. They're just little felted rocks.
How
So
big is the book?
it's 14 inches tall, and it's, well, it's 14 inches tall, about 14 inches wide, and about 10 inches deep.
Good. So, well, we have here a number of comments on all of the different books, and I think I'll go ahead and read these, and then I think if you have a question, you can, or a comment, you can raise your hand, and we'll see how it goes. So let's see. From Pat, we have kudos, a brilliant depth of exploration through different kinds of structures. Lots of comments here. And Michelle says, I love the response to deep reading. I think both of those were in response to Belinda's book. And then great transformation from a military structure to an art gallery, and then to an artist's book. And that is true. It changed completely from beginning to end. And Jane says, great work, thank you. And another comment about the bunker book, from tagging to images a la Banksy. And brilliant color palette, beautiful work. Question for Judy, what's behind the door in your tree?
Well, originally the door was going to open, and was going to be a room inside. So there's a space in there that could be a room, but that was one of those ideas that was a little bigger than what I could do. So I guess that inside is an idea that didn't happen.
Very good. And another question, what is your personal connection to libraries?
Oh, my mother was a librarian. So every day after school, I went to the library and sat in my special little corner and read books.
I'm curious to know how the audience has received this presentation today. How did we do, folks? Any comments? Oh, thumbs up. Okay. You can speak if you want to.
I think it's great. We didn't get to have the exhibition, so it's been wonderful to have artists talk about books and having the several views. Yeah, thanks.
I think it's very inspiring to be able to see how people work in different media and still come back to the book form. And I just find it very energizing.
Well, that's good to hear. Sometimes it's hard to know. I have another comment here. It's a pleasure to see different work, and all of the books were different from one another, I noticed. And hear folks talk about what their creative process is. So that's good. So great way. All right, that's good. Great way. And since it is a learning experience, I am very eager to get feedback and hints and helpful connections. And we are at PSBA, we are quite eager to have ideas for programming that might interest people that are adapted to to our situation as it currently is, when we can't see each other closer to 6 feet. And so so a couple of more chat things. Thank you to everyone. So nice to have so many of you involved, though we are apart. That's what I meant to say too. And appreciate seeing the work and having the opportunity to be inspired. I've never been able to attend in person a meeting of PSBA. This is from Craig and Nancy, as I joined right at the start of the pandemic. Welcome. This and Ann Gates' presentations have made me feel like an involved member. So there is an upside sort of to this remote connection. So, well, thank you everyone for coming.